Welcome to Night Freaks, where we interview DJs, producers, nightlife industry workers, and everyone in between. You can find us on Instagram at night.freaks and Spotify and YouTube at Night Freaks. I hope you enjoy this episode and please keep listening. All right. Welcome to Night Freaks Radio. We're joined today by a very, very, very special guest, Max Coletto. Just got back from a trip to Europe. I know he went through Germany and a couple other places through there. We'll definitely talk to him about that today. But Max, what's going on?
How are we doing? Thank you guys for having me. It's cool to be here. I know you had mentioned getting this rolling recently, so yeah, it's a pleasure to be invited.
No, it's great. And first episode, you know, we're ready to launch it, and we're happy to have you here and happy to ask you some questions and get some insight into your life and what it's like as a DJ and producer here in LA.
Yeah, I'm excited to share and also to kind of hear what you've been up to. I know, you know, we can jump into how we know each other and stuff, but yeah, it's cool to be connected here in LA, and yeah, there's a lot happening here, so yeah, I'm excited to get into it.
No, yeah, me too. All right, well, let's hop right into it. My first couple questions for you are really just about like how you got into this and how you got into this like line of work, you know, DJing, producing, all that stuff. So when you started, was it more like you just wanted to start by yourself, or was it that you had like a crew of people around you that were like, hey, like this is really cool stuff that we see people doing and we want to get involved? So yeah, what was the upbringing for you, like kind of into the DJing and producing world?
I'll try and keep it brief because there's a lot I could say on this. I mean, I would say it kind of happened in stages. So firstly, I would say was maybe being like 15 or 16 years old and having a couple older buddies that I just knew from like surfing and growing up who kind of started putting me onto like 90s deep house. They would send me YouTube links of like Mr. G and Carrie Chandler and Fresh and Low. And I remember at the time hearing it, but being like, I really want to like this. But I wasn't quite like ready for it yet. I did like it, but it was just a little bit too abstract compared to just pretty much only listening to like modern music. So I kind of like listened to it every so often, maybe a few times a week or whatever. And because I really wanted to like this music, it felt like mature and cool and a little more like serious for a couple years. And then I went to college and then really got put onto electronic music more, but not quite that style. It was more like modern, you know, different genres. And then probably when I was about 19 or so, then getting gifted or like getting a set of decks for very cheap, like from a friend, an older friend. And then that's kind of what started me to like really start digging and like expand upon that 90s house that I had discovered before and like start to really look on SoundCloud and YouTube and whatever else for like all sorts of house music, but I didn't really know what I was doing. It was just like, okay, discover music so you can try and mix it at parties with your buddy, like when you guys are just partying, you know, it wasn't anything serious. And then it slowly evolved through beyond that, then like meeting more people. This was right around, I would say actually the biggest turning point in all this, to sum it up, would be going to Australia in early 2020 with my best friend Jordan to study abroad there. We were supposed to be there for 6 months. We only ended up being there for like almost 2 months because of the lockdown and all the nonsense. But we got there, in like late January of 2020, and pretty much instantly like met people. We met some Americans, we met some Australians, and then they would all kind of direct us to like the best parties to go to. And we started going to this party called Sash at this club in Sydney. It's a really cool like late night into the morning party. They do it on Sundays. And it overlooks the Sydney Harbor. And it's like this their main room is like this triangular room that's all made of glass. So you can just look out onto the Sydney Harbor and like you can see parts of the city from that room. And the music was proper, and they have like a Function 1 sound system tuned really well. And it was like I wasn't even 21 yet. So stepping into a room like that at 20 years old, having not ever really been to a party or a club, was like set the bar so high. You can imagine.
Life changing right there, yeah.
It was. I'll never forget it because I was with my friend, a friend at the time I was traveling with Jordan, and we turned the corner from like the main room where they were playing house classics, and we turned the corner into this other room where they were playing like kind of more up my alley. The first time I was hearing like minimal and like tech house and kind of more like underground sounding music. And I'll never forget, like, we looked at each other and she was like, yeah, it's like more techie in here. Like, we didn't even know what it was, like what the music was. We were just like, this is just way deep and kind of abstract and really sick. So then after that, like doing that for a few more weeks and then getting sent home because of the lockdown and coming back in 2020, it was like, okay, we need to replicate that feeling, like try and find parties like that, try and find music like that. I would say that was the biggest,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Big turning point in your career, and just when you really knew what it is, what kind of sound that you wanted to drive, and how you wanted to make it in this kind of industry. And
Yeah, because I mean, I would say it was a turning point in my life because it was like I had experienced, obviously I'd listened to a lot of electronic music before that, but it was like nothing to that degree where like I had a buddy who said this a few years later, and it kind of I tied this back to like my experience, but it's basically that when you walk in a room, especially the on a sound system like that, but when you hear those tracks, it's like this is house music for adults. And it sounds funny and like cliche, but it's like this is what I've been searching for. No vocals, everything is really repetitive and loopy and hypnotic. Once I discovered that, it was like a game changer. So
yeah, found the market for it and realized that there were other people out there that were like, yeah, I really like this.
Yeah, I just realized that it existed in general, and I was like, oh, like I never even knew this existed. So let's like explore it,
Right. No, that's awesome, and that kind of leads me into my next question. I'm assuming that you were playing for a while before you started like getting your first gigs and stuff like that, and other things along those lines. Like, what was that first gig like, and like how does it compare to what you're playing now and the parties that you're playing now and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, basically coming home from that trip, I had that little, very like pretty much broken little deck that I had linked up with my laptop. So I like saved up whatever money I had and then upgraded pretty much right away when I got home from that trip because I was just at home all day, every day in 2020. And then, started like just digging as hard as I could, like just looking for music all day, during that period. But after that, it was basically like, yeah, I mean, I didn't really have any gigs because nothing was going on that summer, but I remember like playing at more buddies' houses and parties and whatever else, like still really about the music that whole summer. And then going back to college for my senior year. And then I remember like mentioning to a friend that I worked with at the time, like, oh, I'm kind of trying to like, because parties were starting to come back. They had all these ridiculous rules, but like bars were being populated and stuff. So I remember mentioning to a friend like, hey, or just saying like, yeah, I'm really looking for places I can DJ because I just bought this nice deck and I've been buying music. She's like, oh, cool. Like, yeah, I'll keep an eye out or whatever. And then our boss at the bar I was working at right after that was like, oh, our DJ just canceled tonight. And this girl was nice enough to be like, oh, Max just mentioned he's a DJ. Like, you want to see if you can book him? I was like, oh shit. Okay, cool. So she hit me up that day. Basically, long story short, I started playing regularly there. And it was good because I was not able to really, like, it was good looking back because I wasn't really able to play that super underground music that I was talking about that I love, but I was able to play music similar enough to it that it really taught me to dig for all different styles, different BPMs, different genres, which now is valuable to have music like that and to learn like you need to have all your bases covered. So I was gigging there for the rest of my senior year. I moved back home in that summer, and that's when things kind of slowly picked up because more parties were coming back. I started meeting people. I was really hanging out in San Diego at that time. I was not even really coming to LA. I thought I was going to move to San Diego then. I was just playing bar gigs and stuff for like the rest of that summer, which was fun. Again, really taught me a lot, like taught me what I didn't know. And a lot of instances where I was like, oh shoot, I need to like step my game up, but it was fun. I'm thankful that I was given those opportunities, met more people. But yeah, I mean, and then it was like probably that 2022-ish time when I would start getting like regular bar gigs and like making relationships with promoters and stuff. And then it would slowly snowball over the next 3 years till now.
Yeah, and that 2022 time, that was more when you moved up into like the LA area, or was that still when you were kind of moving around? Because I know that, side story here, me and Max both went to school in Flagstaff, and we met up there. He's a couple years older than me, but we had met and stuff. So I know these places that he's talking about and other stuff like that. But in this 2022 time, was this more in LA, or where were you at this time?
I was living in Orange County still at home. Okay. And I was kind of just like figuring out where I wanted to be. Just like still kind of evaluating things and working. I was doing a bunch of different jobs, like post college. It was a very weird time, so it was fun to just like do a bunch of different things for work. Like I mentioned, just dig and collect music as much as I could and play wherever I could.
For sure.
But I was starting to come to LA, but I had a few friends who lived here, and I would like be able to crash on their couch for a couple hours in the morning and then like drive back home. But yeah, that's when I started coming out to like some of the underground parties in LA here, and like really, it was basically like a second version of what I mentioned happened in 2020 in Australia. Was exactly like that exact thing happened basically almost exactly 2 years later, like the very early parts of 2022, when I started going out in LA and seeing like, oh shit, this is the same thing. There's this whole underground scene, like the music is proper, everyone's listening, has their heads down, like it was right, just what I needed at that time. So yeah, I started coming around in LA then. I didn't quite like move here, fully be planted here until like a year later. Okay. Where I was like house sitting at a friend's place long term in Culver City and working and stuff. So yeah, it's been about 3-ish awesome. Years being in LA.
Cool. And then I remember you saying that you really fell in love with like the minimal tech kind of stuff and just more of like the loopier stuff. So I know you play a lot of minimal tech and kind of like breakbeat kind of style music. So how would you describe your sound though, if you had to put a label on it?
Honestly, when I get asked, like, I just say I play house music, techno, and minimal because I feel like that encompasses it well. And the more, like I kind of mentioned, the more I learned, especially even at those early gigs, the more I learned that I didn't know. Like the more, like it's a weird phenomenon.
For sure.
But that's how it's been the last few years. Like, especially when I really started buying records, like you think you just like this one thing, and you don't even know that you like all this other stuff out there that you don't even know, you don't even know what to call it, how to describe it really. Right. Sometimes. Because it's just so, the lines get blurred and some of it's very abstract and it's like, some of it's completely different than what would be up your alley. But yeah, I mean, I would say I started because when you're a young person, like I'm sure obviously in America, maybe it's different in other countries, but like in the US, I'm sure you can relate. You hear all sorts of electronic music genres, maybe when you're coming into high school or college, most of which are just very mainstream, like vocal driven. So you kind of, and then you kind of, from there, okay, you hear like one track, maybe like some tech house, at least in my experience, like when I was like 18 or 19, you hear some tech house that like has no vocal, or you hear something that's a little deeper and like loopier, and you're kind of like, oh, what is that? So I would say it was like a very slow evolution over like 3 years, where then finally it was like, okay, I like this kind of more stripped back, loopy, like you said, house music. And I kind of thought then, okay, well, that's all that I like. And I didn't really understand that I love different genres of techno, like techno that comes out of Detroit, like really good minimal techno from Europe in the 90s and 2000s. Like you mentioned, I love breakbeat. I like just weird, obscure records. Like I think it's fun to kind of like find in those weird, not weird, but like in those subgenres that are more rare to come across. If you can find the one record in there that really fits with some of the more like, I don't know, listenable stuff, like throwing in wildcard records. But yeah, I would say that's what got me on my path, was like that rolling minimal, like underground house, tech house, techno.
I think that's great. And I think what a lot of times, like what happened for me, and I think a lot of other people that are like kind of growing up, listening to that, like you were saying, like more mainstream electronic music, stuff like that. Like you find that one track that's just like, whoa, like what is that? And then after that, you just keep digging and you just keep trying to find tracks that are like that, and just keep trying to expand your sound a little bit and see like what else there is out there. Like if they're making stuff like this, like what else are they making, and other things like that. But that's awesome.
Right. It's important that I'll just say, like, I think the method which you're using to dig, or like the platform you're using to dig, makes a big difference. And I would encourage people to like branch out, use different platforms, and use the platform in a way that is not designed to be, or not that it's not designed to be used this way, but like, for example, if you go on, X record platform, what's that?
I said X the everything app. That's Twitter, man.
Yeah, well, not X. Actually, I was just using that as a placeholder of like insert record pool website, like any website you would do digging digitally. And it's so easy to just listen to stuff and let the algorithm feed you stuff. What I would suggest is using it in such a way that's like, go to the most obscure pocket you can and find an artist and then read all about them and then find the label and read. Because when I first, like once I started doing that, as opposed to just going on whatever streaming platform and letting it feed me stuff, you just expedite that process, I would say. In my very short period of doing this, like that's something that's helped me that I think is like, and it's kind of more fun that way too. You find stuff that like your buddies aren't listening to also, you know.
Definitely.
So I'll just say that.
Find
But
the hidden gems out there for sure.
right.
And okay, so that leads me into my next question. You play vinyl all the time, and what's the biggest difference there between like playing vinyl like versus playing on something like a digital setup? Like, is it more the prep? Is it more like what you put into it? Like what's the big main difference there, and why do you stay playing vinyl versus playing digital?
Yes, I would say I play records a lot. I always like to have my record bag with me. If like I always request that there be turntable set up. I think that's kind of in line with a lot of my colleagues in the LA underground or even like traveling. These days, it's very like, it's becoming ubiquitous again. But I would say the biggest difference, I mean, there are a lot. The prep, like you mentioned, is huge. I mean, packing your bag, I would say like it's important to know your tracks and know your records always. But I've realized the importance of really knowing your records just when you get to a gig, because like you could have a record that has like a big track on the A side, like A1, and then you have like, something more chill on the A2, and then you have like an ambient track on A3, and then a hip hop track on B1 and whatever. So I'm just saying like you really have to know, like, not only pick the right record, but play the right side. And there's a lot of that like goes on before the gig that will bring you success once you get there and you know what you're playing and when. But I would say I just enjoy it because kind of what I mentioned when you're digging, when you go to a record shop and you just say, hey, what might you recommend, or whatever, like, or you don't do that, or you just dig in the first bin you'd see and work your way down the whole, set of bins. You're just always finding stuff that your friends or colleagues aren't really finding. You're getting put onto a ton of new music, old music, new music. Like I mentioned, genres you've never heard of before. So that's what's always kept me going, is like, I'm going to go into the shop and see a buddy and drink a coffee and spend 3 or 4 hours in there and come out with a ton of music that I've never heard of. Prime example, we can get into this later, but like when I was digging in Europe, I knew this, I was pretty sure this was going to happen. But like when I go to a shop, I do a lot of digging digitally on Discogs or in person at record shops. I'd go pick up a big stack. I'd just grab like 30 at a time or whatever and go over to the listening station. And there were so many times where I wouldn't recognize a single artist or label or track in the whole stack. And I'm sure some veteran DJs out there that stops happening. They start to recognize stuff. But like, I was pleasantly surprised. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to buy a ton of new stuff here. So I would say in terms of like what keeps me motivated to buy records and play records, that's like number one by far. Okay. But I still love playing digitally. I buy a ton of music digitally on Bandcamp and on like I mentioned, a bunch of other like record pool websites, like the main ones that pretty much everyone uses. Because there's a lot of stuff also getting added, I've noticed, like even rare records that I find on Discogs, like you'll look one week and it's not available digitally, and then a month or two later there will be a copy on whatever, on a record pool website. So it's cool to like, it's just exciting. It's just as exciting as buying records, is finding those gems digitally. Sure. And making your own music too. If you want to play, like I sometimes want to play my unreleased music or friends' unreleased music. So that's obviously the way to do it.
Yeah. So when you're prepping for sets, do you plan most of it ahead? Like, are you ready with your records? You know what records you're going to spin in an order, or is it more crowd's energy does it for you, and you can pick based off that, or what does your prep look like going into a set?
I would say it really depends on the location and the time of night. Obviously, of course, that's going to have a big factor. I mean, there are certain records that just don't leave my bag those are the records that I will, like that you never want to get rid of, because if you can play them kind of at any time of night, they're super versatile and really sound good. Like that's ultimately what I'm looking for. So like I'll have those in there, and then I'll typically just pack from low energy to high energy in kind of a sequential order. And then I'll have like kind of more obscure stuff. Like if we're talking about digital, I'll make a playlist for like anything with a vocal or anything that's a different style, like tracks that maybe pause the energy for a sec, or like a break beat, or something that's more like hypnotic and really like captures the room. And you can kind of, I like to just like sprinkle those in. But then of course, like I say that, and then you turn up to a gig, and then sometimes it doesn't call for that. And emphasizing the importance of knowing your records, knowing your digital music too. all of a sudden you have to kind of like, your music will work, but not in the way that you intended for it. Like maybe you really have to put your foot on the gas for an hour and then let off, and then they want to hear something really weird, so you play all your kind of more obscure stuff. So I would say like you have to kind of expect the unexpected is what I've learned. Like I continue to just get humbled, and to get, again, I'm young and new to this. Like I'm learning from my big bros, my mentors who are in their mid to late 30s, and not to mention my heroes who are in their 50s, like some of these lifelong DJs. So I would say expect the unexpected, but know your music.
Cool. And always learning and growing.
Right.
So that leads me into something a little different. What's the best part for you right now, or your favorite part about being a DJ in LA? And on the flip side, what are some of the main challenges that you're facing out here?
I would say my favorite part, honestly, is, I mean, of course, like having a reason to, I'm lucky to like have a platform to play music semi-consistently, and but I would say honestly the part that brings me the most fulfillment is when I go, whether I'm playing or whether a friend is playing or something, to go out on a Friday night or Saturday night and be on the dance floor until like whatever time in the morning with seemingly hundreds of friends. I mean, like to walk into some place and give out, like I always say, like everyone hugs each other, like even all the bros, like to go out and just give like 50 people hugs and catch up and talk about music, or not talk about music, talk about life, like the community and being around and like gathering friends consistently, never stopping, I think is the most rewarding thing. Because frankly, like when I go out once on a weekend, and again, you're just at the party all night, listening to music, chatting with people, socializing, I can come home on a Sunday and just like jump in the water and work on music all day. And I feel so satisfied because like the social aspect of the music is totally taken care of. Like people are so dedicated in this city in terms of like showing up to events and supporting each other. That's, I think, the part that brings me the most like internal satisfaction and like joy, honestly. But I would say besides that, getting to share music to people who are very open-minded and like to go to a party and hear records they've never heard before. You know, I think that's like a nice thing that we have that not a lot of cities have. And then a challenge, I think sometimes there can be competition within events. Like, I mean, competition's good, but I think, you know, it would be nice if there were more heads, like just more people. I mean, sure. By heads, I mean people, like just a higher head count of people to support. If there were 3 banger events on one night, to be able to support that. And maybe that is the case, and I'm not around with that, but it is tough when you have like buddies playing here and buddies playing there. And I mean, I think all of the events can do really well, but it's not like, it's not a mega scene. It's growing and getting big, but yeah, I mean, with that said, all events that I see my friends do and that I play, I think like get a healthy turnout, are starting to get a lot of recognition. So it's not really a challenge. It's just something that'll, I think, continue to see some change as people enter the scene.
Sure.
So,
and then I know you travel a lot, you gig a lot, you do a lot of these things. Do you ever feel burnt out by the grind of like all the travel, all the gigs, you know, always going out, being out late, all these things? Or have you kind of found like a flow that works for you to just manage all that and manage your personal life? And I know you love to surf, love to get in the water. So like, how do you manage all these things that you have to deal with?
I think if it looks like I manage it, I think that's a little bit of an illusion, but thank you. I would say, honestly, the first thing would be, I think people like make jokes about this, like in a playful way with me, but like I always go home on time. I would say like understanding the difference between when you're like really having a sick one and everyone's like the music's on point and you're like, I must stay here as late as I possibly can till the last track, and understanding when you don't necessarily have to, like you go and see your people and socialize and give out your hugs and chat with friends and like enjoy going out, and then like understanding when, okay, I should probably go get some sleep because I want to do whatever the next day. So again, it's a balance. I don't always have it perfect, but that's something I'm kind of always thinking of, like, okay, what else do I need to nurture in my circle of things that I need to do to like that make all this happen. It's like the music production, it's digging, it's socializing, it's showing up to your friends' events, it's like, I don't know, insert whatever else there. But yeah, I mean, I would say I'm definitely driven by like surfing and staying in shape and trying to sleep and take care of myself and eat. But But I would say no, I don't really get burnt out, honestly, because I have a good hold on that. If I were to ever feel like I was getting close to being burnt out on something, I just kind of reallocate my attention to whatever needs it. I mean, it doesn't always work that well, but like I think I have a pretty good read on it, so that I don't like. I think that's something I honestly kind of fear a little bit, is being like, oh, I don't have any desire to dig or make music or something.
Right.
That to me sounds like hell. Like that would be the worst. So I definitely like have a good read on making sure that doesn't happen. But again, I think that can happen to anyone. Like I'm just saying right now in the phase of life that I am, I'm trying to keep all like, don't let any of the wheels fall off at once. But yeah, I think it's easy. It's somewhat easy to do here because there's a lot to do. If the weather's nice, you know, you want to go outside too and do stuff. So
Sure.
it's not a huge hurdle for me.
Okay, awesome. And then that takes me into, I want to ask you about some of your own music. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. It's just based off the research I've done. But you've released a couple killer EPs this year. Balboa on The Room in Black. Smoke Point on Rhizome Forms. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Hopefully I am.
Yep.
And Strange Settings on Unk Planet. What
Right.
are some new releases coming up for you, or some new projects that you're working on, or any labels that you're dropping on, or anything like that?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's actually this is very well timed because I just pretty much got it confirmed and like a confirmed, I think a confirmed release date, but I won't say it just in case it changes. But it'll be within the next few weeks. Releasing a 4-track EP on You Know What Music, which is a digital label. So one of my mentors and big bros, Enzo Muro, runs this party called You Know What with he has a partner as well who's another one of my mentors, and so Enzo runs a vinyl label called You Know What. That's like the same brand as the event series that I'm a resident at that we play together. And then he just is starting a digital version or a digital label called You Know What Music. So I will be releasing a 4-track EP on that digital label called You Know What Music sometime within the next probably 3-ish weeks. It'll come out. And Enzo and I have worked together for a while. He's a big reason why I discovered a lot of the music that I have. We've done some traveling together. We hang out in LA all the time. Like he's another great person to just exchange ideas with, talk about music with. Like I can tell he has the same, I have the same desire that he has. So we get along really well in that way. And he was nice enough to offer me a release on this digital label for 4 of my tracks. So yeah, once he offered me that, I just spent some time mixing them down and trying to get everything dialed, and then we just got them mastered. So I have that coming out. Otherwise, I'm just grafting a lot in the studio, like making a ton of demos, polishing up the ones I really like, sharing them with friends. Like it's nice to get support. Like this kind of last year or two that I really started whipping up a lot of music, I'll just send them to friends, and then like my buddy Arturo, like I sent him a pack, and then like the next week or two, I saw he played like 3 of them on this radio show that he's playing called Bean Radio here in LA. So it's like it's nice to see, like, again, just goes back to the community in LA, like having that kind of connection with people here and getting each other's music supported and releasing on each other's labels is fun. Another one I just remembered that I wanted to talk about is I'm releasing 1 track on vinyl on my friend's label. So you mentioned The Room in the Back. Mm-hmm. So my buddy JJ runs that label. They do digital and vinyl releases. This will come out on the vinyl side. It's a 4-track EP. I have 1 track on there. It'll be my first vinyl release. And he just got the test pressing. So I've been trying to meet up with him hopefully this week so we can listen to it. And then, we'll probably play it out a little bit, test it out. And then once we confirm that we like it, he'll do a production run and we'll get it stocked in a bunch of record stores. And I'll be posting about it. So I'll make sure you get a copy too. But
please. Yeah,
that's an exciting one for me because that track, that was kind of, and it's, again, going back to the community and friends and stuff. I made that track. I literally, like, I was listening to a bunch of music on Discogs, like just digging. Heard this really sick bass line and like some other elements in this track. So I just like, okay, I'm going to make an edit. Like just not even, I wasn't even planning on making music right then, but I was like, I just want to try this. And literally made that track in like 45 minutes, the first draft. And then edited it, kind of forgot about it. And then he asked me, he's like, hey, I want to do a vinyl release on The Room in the Back. Send me some stuff. So I just included that. And he's like, oh, that's the one right there. Like, he loved it. And I was like, okay, sick, whatever. And then I'm so glad he did because I wouldn't have considered that one of my favorites. But I am super glad that like now the more I've listened to it and realized, okay, this is something special. So that's like, I would say will be one of the more exciting releases for me.
Yeah, and I feel like that happens a lot of the time. Like, you know, with producers and DJs and stuff, you know, that you produce so much stuff, you make so much stuff that sometimes you kind of just get lost in all these things that you're making, and you work so hard for some of these tracks that you end up working like weeks and weeks on that you think are going to be the one, and then really it's the one that you spent 45 minutes to an hour on that's like the hitter that everyone wants, and everyone is just like, oh man, like this is so fire, da da da. So I always see that, and when people talk about it, they're like, yeah, sometimes it's just the one that you really didn't think was gonna do that well, and everyone loves it. And so it's always crazy to hear stories like that where, you know, someone will be like, oh yeah, I produced this in my bed, or da da da, I spent 40 minutes on this, and it ended up being the one that was just like so good. So that's funny to hear.
Yeah, it's all about just not hesitating, and I mean that's what I've learned. Again, you can work on something for weeks, and I'm sure there are some that really sound great. But yeah, the ones that you don't hesitate, that are simple and effective, like I need to instill that and try and produce like that more often, because it usually yields really good results. But
okay, so you mentioned You Know What LA. I also have down here Chapter One Records as a key part of your journey. How did these relationships come about, and how did they impact your growth, like creatively, personally, and just like other things like that?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So I'll share a quick story of kind of how I got introduced and how this whole thing came together. But yes, so in short, I help manage the Chapter One record shop. I have another friend, Ralph, who is a great DJ, producer, good homie of mine. Over the last couple of years, we've really grown closer as we've worked together. So he and I manage the shop. There are two owners, our mentors, who own it, and they do event series throughout LA. But he and I basically run the shop, and we have now we have some open hours throughout the week. I'm sure you can check on Google, you know, a few days a week where we're open, and then the rest of the time we pop up. We are the record vendor at Crossed, so at Crossed Festival in San Diego. We take not our whole shop, but we take like a good chunk of our inventory, and we have like this nice custom wood furniture. We just load up Ralph's truck in my car, and we just drive everything down there and pop it up and sell records. And it's a good way to meet people. We usually sell a lot of records. Like we meet some of the heads who really dig down there, and it's a fun thing. It's nice that, you know, the Cross PR team has offered us that opportunity. But I would say basically how I got introduced was I had heard this. It was kind of like a local legend. Like I'd heard about this Chapter One record shop from a friend. This is in like 2021 or so. And I was like, I knew it existed, but it was like kind of like I saw they had an Instagram, but there was no address listed or whatever. And I kind of found out you have to make an appointment through this friend. So long story short, I went up. I was still living in Orange County at this time, and I went up to LA to house sit for a friend in Silver Lake for like a week. I was like, I'm gonna make an effort. Like I'm gonna actually go and see. So I set up an appointment just on email, and I went in there and they had so many sick records, like great selection. And the guy working there, who is now my mentor and one of my big bros, was like, we just chatted up. I was in there for like 4 hours, and I was, you know, like chatted up with him in between stacks, and I was like, oh, this is so cool and stuff. And then I basically just said, hey, if you ever like need help doing this, I would love to like, you know, help you out or get involved, because I love what you're doing. And it was the biggest part in this was it was at this shop was in an event space where I had been to a party like a couple months prior, and the party was really sick. It was kind of like that Sash moment I had in Sydney, but in LA, was at this warehouse. So I was just like, dude, this is so cool. Like I'm just like so blown away by this. Like I just want to get involved however I can. And he actually called me shortly thereafter and was like, hey, I need some help with this, whatever. So I kind of just had to like really, not that I had to prove myself, but I kind of had to come correct and like, you know, work hard. It's like long nights, you know, and I was not even just doing record shop stuff right away. I was kind of helping on the event production side. And then pretty soon he was like, hey, I have obviously the record shop that you came and bought stuff. Like, I'd love to have you kind of help out and whatever. So then I basically took it from there with the help of a couple other people. And then now it's basically just Ralph and I running it. But yeah, I mean, it's a great way, again, to like stay connected with people. Our friends come buy records. We go to their shops and buy records. It keeps you always digging. It keeps us always on the lookout for like new releases, records from new distributors, like from all over Europe or sometimes the US. And then it keeps us on the lookout for DJ collections, used records that we want to buy for the shop, because we stock both new and used records. But I mean, we stock pretty much everything from house music, techno. We have like an Italo disco section, but our main bread and butter is like used house and techno for DJs.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. I gotta make my way over there and maybe schedule an appointment, get in there and see what you got.
Whenever you want, bro. Come have a dig. Yeah. We have a nice new space. We have sound installed in there. We have listening stations,
Nice.
Couch. It's like a nice space. So
Sweet. So that kind of leads me to my next topic. We've been talking about, some labels and some collectives and other things like that. What are some of these labels or collectives maybe that you've worked with, maybe that you haven't worked with, that you'd like to work with in the future, that have kind of shaped your sound early on and helped guide your direction as a producer and a DJ?
Do you mean based in LA or globally?
Just anywhere, anyone that you kind of feel some inspiration from, or any labels that you see and you're like, damn, they're doing it right. Whether it's LA, whether it's Europe, whether it's wherever it is, what are some of those like labels or producers or anyone that you really see that's just like doing really good stuff right now?
I think I'll keep it kind of more general, but the scene in Romania, I mean, I know it has been going on for a long time, longer than I've even been like in the game really, but the producers there like continue to be some of the most like innovative, but still like traditional sounding, but really fresh sounding music coming out of Romania for a long time. Obviously in Germany, I mean, I think a lot of that in Romania is driven by their Sunwaves festival that they've done, which I went to in 2023. Just I mean, I can't say I could talk for we could do a whole separate episode about that. But yeah, I would say that scene really had an impact on me coming up, because you would see a lot of these artists, like DJs and producers, doing both really well. And at the festival, like playing a lot of unreleased music from them, which adds to that allure of just there being a reason to go see these DJs, because there are certain tracks that will never come out. So to go listen to this music, you must go see them play. And what better place to see them play than in Tent 4? That's like the main tent where all the Romanians play and a lot of like the most underground artists play, where the sound system is absolutely dialed, like probably the most dialed Function 1 system you'll listen to. And everyone there like just has their heads down, is dancing. The dance floor will be full at like 8 a.m. It's that type of vibe. So I would say that had a huge impact on me, especially going to that festival in 2023. I came back home and felt inspired in the studio for like 6 months. Like after 7 days straight of partying there, It goes, that festival I think went from Wednesday night to Tuesday morning. So it was like after being there for 7 days, it was like, so that, yeah, needless to say, that had a huge impact on my influence. Otherwise, honestly, I mean, there are so many like good labels and like artists all over the world, even in the UK, in Germany. There are a lot of good French artists. When I was in DC, I played the same night as Janneret. And it's funny because I was with him. He just came to mind because it was recent. I'm a great French producer, of which there are many, like, Traumer and the Apollonia guys are French. That you could go all day. But yeah, I was with him in DC, and it was funny because I was with him at Signal when he was playing on Thursday night, and we were chatting because we had met the year prior. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm going to go to LA tomorrow." I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool. I'm playing here tomorrow, so you're going to go see my buddies in LA." And then guess what? I'm going to take a bus down to DC from New York here. You're going to fly to DC like, the next morning, and then I'll see you at Flash because we're going to play the same night at Flash. And then we were up all night together partying and stuff. He's like, "Oh, that's crazy." So it's like moments like that. I mean, you brought up like traveling. Like I am very driven to try and have as many of those moments as possible because it's fun to like reconnect with old friends and bounce around. I mean, yeah, an honorable mention to the scene on the East Coast too, in terms of like, supporting our fellow Americans, because, it's not like there are a ton of huge, like really well-known collectives or parties or whatever. I mean, there are a handful of really good ones here in the U.S., but it seems like compared to Europe, there aren't as many. So you definitely have to give a shout out to the ones that are. So I got to play and spend a lot of time at Signal in New York City. Really proper club. If you want, like, you just have to go. Like, I won't even really spoil it. Like, it's just the most proper, really well done club. Sound system is incredible. The people are super nice. The vibe in there is really proper. It's like a great sized room. It's not too big, but it's not small. Sure. It's just like a really proper place to listen to underground music. And then Flash in DC, that sound system, like I've heard people talk about that sound system at Flash for a long time, but like, even just walking in during a warm-up when there were like 3 people in the room right at the beginning of the night, and you go and stand in the corner of that main room, and the that has 4-corner sound system, and it's just like it feels like it is hitting at the most perfectly balanced level that I've ever heard in a room. Honestly, like it was its own kind of like sonic experience, especially when it got filled with people in there. It sounded so good. So yeah, those two on the East Coast are doing it properly as well.
For sure. And a couple questions for you just before we get into your Europe trip. I got a bunch of questions for you about that. But as both a DJ and a producer, right? You have platforms like we've been talking about, Bandcamp, SoundCloud, Discogs, whatever it is. How has that helped you or shaped the way that like you've released your music? Is it easier for you to just pump out tracks, under your own name, or are you still like a lot of times looking for labels to sign them to, or what does that look like for you?
So I think my priorities have shifted. This is a very like fluid. My approach to this question has been fluid and always changing throughout my time in the last like 4 years, let's say. So I think then it was always about like, okay, first priority, like make as much music as I can. Spent just as I should, as any producer should, spent like 2 years making pretty bad sounding music. Made a couple of really good tracks, but like it was really about, okay, I kind of knew that at the time, like I'm going to make a lot of really bad music. So let me just sit here in my room and crank through tracks, and then I'll finally make a couple that sound good. So then it was like release on some friends' labels and get a few tracks out. And then at the time, then it was kind of like, okay, look for like some smaller labels who might want to sign your music and kind of go that way. But it was ironic that like the more that I did that, the less it really worked out. But the more that I made a lot of music and made more friends, the more releases I would get. And it wasn't just that. I don't think it was just them throwing me a bone, being like, oh, I like Max, and so I'll just give him a release. I think it was like, oh, we're friends. Oh, he actually has some music now. He's polished his skills. Okay, let's give him a release. So I would say that was kind of my focus. Now, frankly, I'm kind of just making music for certain DJs who I won't name, but I'm making music just for them. That's kind of, in the last 6 months or so, I kind of realized like that is my goal, is get my tracks to be played by them. It's just like a kind of a personal thing. I don't know if it's the best like career move per se, but that's something that I want to focus on, is like the next step for me. I mean, I'm always, of course, open to labels. I've gotten a lot of offers, not a lot, but a few offers to release music as I've shared more on release music, like on Instagram or whatever. I'll get offers from labels, which I'm super honored to receive. And I never want to say no, but I will say, hey, here are my priorities right now. Let's just continue the conversation. Let me continue to share stuff with you, because I'd love to do it properly, but I'm not in a rush like I think I was maybe 3 years ago. I think it's more so now, like, be very calculated. As far as Bandcamp goes, I love Bandcamp. Obviously, I mentioned I do a lot of digging on Bandcamp. I have a lot of friends who release their music on Bandcamp. I think it's something that I could improve on, is self-releasing stuff there, because it's so easy. Like, you get caught up in all the details, but really you could be so successful just releasing even one track at a time, or like 2-track EPs, and just make your own little artwork, or just use an abstract photo, make that it's just kind of all about like brand cohesiveness, if I could say that, for that, like to start building that up and getting, obviously the music of course has to be good, but like you can have a lot of success just self-releasing on there. SoundCloud, I mean, I think it's possible for sure. Like you can do well putting your music out there, as well, or maybe just putting snippets and making it for sale on Bandcamp or whatever. I mean, there's no right or wrong way. I'm just thinking out loud of like things that I see when I'm digging, or things that my friends might do. So yeah, I don't know if that fully answered your question, or if that only.
Yeah, no, that was good. I just always see people, you'll see so many people that are just releasing under their own names, or releasing all over here, and it just seems like now more than ever is a time that people can make a name for themselves without having to go through a label, or without having getting signed by these people, and just being able to pump out their music in the way that they want, and how they want to do it, and whenever they want to do it, which is a great thing, because I feel like a lot of times 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it's like, okay, well, now you have to sit on these tracks and produce and drop them when we want you to drop them and stuff like that. And so I feel like, obviously the label aspect is great, and everyone wants to be signed to a label, but when you are given the opportunity to just drop whenever you want and stuff like that, that's also pretty cool too. And I think that that's a great thing that more DJs and producers on the rise are able to do, just to get themselves seen too, and just like maybe someone will scroll across it or hear it and be like, oh shit, like this is proper, this is great, and just kind of be like, hey, we want to hear more of this guy, and just work their way up that way. So I think it's definitely a good stepping stone in the path of making your name and getting out there and getting more known to these people that are in these audiences that maybe you wouldn't have been able to reach 15, 20 years ago. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a great thing that people can do, and other stuff like that. But
Yep.
that takes me into a little bit of your production side. So like, what are some plugins or gear that are just like stuck into your workflow that like you can't live without, if there is anything? Or are you normally popping in around using different stuff, learning different things? What's your kind of mindset there when it comes to plugins, gear, other stuff like that?
So I think honestly, I work so like inconsistently, let's say, with stuff. Like I just go through trends of different tools that I like to use. But what I have, I just got the Electron Digitact, and I love it because it's so like there's no right or wrong way to use it. You can like I like using it just with certain single elements and just kind of like changing the sound throughout, like recording down a big strip and then like laying that on a track. Because I work mostly in the box, so I don't use a whole lot of outboard gear. But it's like nice to have some of these units like this. Like I have a couple little mini like groove boxes that I just will use to like kind of just complement what I've already made in the computer, which kind of adds like a nice bit of variation. I think someday I'll transition to using a lot more outboard gear, drum machines, and synths and stuff. But I think a lot of the stuff inside the box, excuse me, works really well. Yeah, I mean, I would say I have like certain little like sequencers and stuff that I like to use, but I generally use all sorts of stuff. Omnisphere, Trillion are like some of the main plugins. I like finding really like random drum, like if I can, like in a perfect world, if I had unlimited time, I would just sit and listen to my records all day and find drum samples, or listen to like soul records or disco and find drum loops that you wouldn't really think would work, and try and just like cut them because they're always grittier and record, especially if it's like an older record. Like that, I feel like is what really brings a lot of character. It's not my most consistently used method of production, but I would say it's probably the most satisfying, is like just listening to like a Celine Dion record or something, like just the most random thing you can think of, and finding a sick sample and being like, okay, I'm going to make like an underground techno record with this sound. Like I think that is the coolest part of being a producer in the modern day, even though that's been that people have been doing that for decades, sampling old records. But it's like, I think incorporating some of that into your production for me is probably the most satisfying, and like the thing that I like the most, frankly, because when you can do that, add in a couple really strong elements that are unique sounding, you don't even have to go that hard on some of the other elements. Like you can just kind of copy and paste it together and add your own little flair, and the complexity and the uniqueness kind of just takes care of itself after that. You don't even need to get that crazy in the arrangement or in the sound design and other parts, you know?
Sure. And okay, that takes me right into my next stuff. This is about you in Europe. I want to, just ask you a couple questions about that. How is that like? So when you're out there, I know you live here in Southern California, down in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
What is it like going over there and meeting new people? What are the crowds like? What are the venues like? Just give us some, insight into what it was like, and what you like, what maybe you don't like, what you like more about here, what you like more about there. Just maybe some insight into what it's like, and the culture out there.
Yeah, so I would say, firstly, that the scene. So I spent time in Barcelona and then in Berlin, and then I went, like I mentioned, to the East Coast on the way home. I would say that in Barcelona, it's very like it felt like very high energy parties. A few of the clubs that I went to, like sound systems are really dialed. Like the club atmosphere in itself, I would say this for everywhere I've been in Europe, just these last two stops on my last trip in particular. Like the club atmosphere is just much more thought through and curated, and it's kind of more geared towards listening. It's less, I mean, the production is very strong, but it's not all about like big production lasers and whatever else. It's very kind of more stripped down in the production aspect. It's all about the sound. They're clean but simple places. They have places to sit. It's like low lighting, red lighting. At least in the clubs I experienced, like that was the vibe, which is right up my alley. It was like very in line with the kind of music we're listening to. It was cool. Same thing with the record shops. I really don't have anything but like extremely high marks to give all of the record shops I went to, all the people that worked there. It was very much a positive experience. Like again, I make jokes, but like it really is like you can just you walk into a record shop with a coffee for right when they open in the morning, and you stay there for 6 hours, and then you just chat up the employees. Like this guy Luca in particular at Seawolf Records in Barcelona, he was there like right when I got there. He actually opened the shop early for me so I could come by. I WhatsApped him and messaged him, and we just chatted, and he just would, every few stacks I would pick out, he'd go grab 5 for me and recommend, and it was like all really, like I pretty much bought everything he recommended, because once I kind of gave him an idea of what I was into, like the shopping experience and the digging experience was so strong because a lot of these people all over Europe really know their music well, but just like the overall hospitality and vibe was very strong. So I was super pleased with that. I had fun even just like sightseeing and walking around the cities, you know, like kind of just being a tourist, eating. And I had a great time. And then I was in Berlin after that. I was working with another one of my mentors, Dewalta, who has had a pretty incredible career. He's been in the game for a long time. He really does a great job of bridging that gap of being someone who's like on the complete other side as me. You know, this has been his career for like 20 years, but he really like has a gift of being able to like teach and pass down knowledge well. And like, you know, we got to spend a couple days in the studio making music together, and he's kind of been someone who I've really leaned on the last couple of years to like offer feedback on my music. And he's mixed down that EP on the room in the back. He mixed down, and he's got a beautiful studio, like a creative room and then a mixing room. So I've learned, I have to credit him for a lot of, especially the technical stuff that I've learned, but also just like the overall approach to like this kind of a career. He's been super valuable. So spending the time with him in person, like there in Berlin, just like hanging out in the studio, walking to go get lunch, just picking his brain, talking about not music stuff, talking about like surfing and whatever, was the highlight of my time in Europe for sure. It was like very, very special. And it was something I needed to do, to go there and just do that stuff by myself and explore, and then come home and again like get back to seeing friends here and get back to work in the studio, and just like you feel so fulfilled, and you feel like that, you know, having an experience like that to come home and just get back to work, back to the grind, feels like the right thing to do because you got to have so much fun and social time and whatever. Now it's like, okay, cool, let's channel that inspiration into like work, you know.
Exactly. And how do you manage, because I know you take your record bag everywhere with you, so how do you manage like bringing that with you places? Is there any problems like when you're flying, when you're doing things like this, like what does it look like traveling for you with all your records and stuff like that? Were there any malfunctions or anything like that, like when you were traveling at all, you know? Was there, or did it all go perfectly smooth?
It went smoothly. Yeah, I know. It was funny. Maybe you saw the photo of the TSA agent. They always have something to say. I mean, anyone who carries like a vinyl bag, I'm sure, obviously, people who have done this for their career for a long time have had this happen countless times, I'm sure. But like, yeah, they at TSA, they're always curious, like, what the hell's in there? They're like, is it plates or what are you? And then one person in Germany was like, oh, it's a music box. I was like, yes, DJ bag records. Like, oh, yes. So sometimes they know, but yeah, that was kind of a funny one. But no, I mean, other than it just being like, I overbought records, and it was going to be so expensive. Like I shipped a couple boxes home, but I tried to like jam them in my duffel bag and get them to New York. And then when I got to my friend's place in New York, I just like sprawled everything out and then like reorganized, packed all the stuff I was going to play in New York and DC, and then like hauled a big couple tote bags to her local post office there, and then just mailed everything out from there, which was funny. So, but no, I mean, it's well worth it, of course. But yeah, no, as far as traveling, just got to pack it right. I mean, it is heavy and whatever, but yeah, it's something I think I'll continue to do for as long as I can. So sure. Yeah, it's like a fun. I mean, I think also going and collecting around those records is like kind of this. It puts together a story of your travels too. You know, it kind of it's fun to remember. Oh, I bought this record in this city. Oh, I bought this record here. This person recommended me this at this shop, and then now I'm like at this club in DC I've never even been before. Like, okay, let's see how this one sounds. Just throwing it on the platter and playing it. It's like that. How that all comes together is for me some of the most like inspiring and fun parts of being a DJ, really.
Right.
So
would you ever consider setting up like a longer residency out in any European city? I know you said you really love Berlin. Like, would that be a goal for you? Maybe spend like a 6-month trip out there, maybe a year or something like that. Do you have any plans of, you know, staying out there for longer periods of time than 2-3 weeks at a time or anything like that? Is that a goal for you?
I would say, yeah, if anyone would ever, when the time is right, if I were to ever get an offer from a party or an event in anywhere in Europe, I mean, I would consider the other, consequences of taking it, like having to move countries and whatever. But I think it would be something that I would do, because just of the value, the kind of experience you would get from doing something like that, and kind of like taking those leaps and kind of taking a risk is something that is increasingly interesting to me. I think just having done some traveling when I was younger, I mentioned going to Australia with my buddy when I was 20, like he had just turned 21, we're basically the same age. When we were young, still felt like kids compared to now. And like, I think taking those risks, and even though you encounter some times where you're just like, oh man, this is like more than we bargained for. I think those are like situations that really make you grow. So yes, I think I would take that offer 100%. It's something that I'm open to. And I think that's hopefully in the cards at some point, with continuing to meet people there and just continuing to work really, really hard here. Maybe at some point that'll come to fruition. You never know.
Definitely. Okay, so I just have a couple, we're just about done here. I got a couple more fun questions for you as we wrap up. Yeah. If you could go back to back with anyone, past, present, anyone ever, who would you pick?
I'm going to say, man, that's a tough one, because you got to think about all sorts of influences, all sorts of places that you have come from. I've got to play a couple special back-to-backs, like with some artists that have come to LA. I'm gonna say Raresh.
Nice. And who were like, what was one back-to-back that you remember that was just like, man, like that was sick?
Among like the more special moments I've had in LA, one was with an artist named Nuzal, who's Romanian, really sick artist. I played, it was at this party called Borderless Project. I played the warm-up, and the funny part about this night is, so Apollonia played at Dialogue on the Friday night. So I left my parents' house, went to Dialogue all night with Apollonia, and then then later in the morning went to my buddy's house, and then I realized, okay, well, like he wanted to do stuff. We went and worked out and had a full day, and then it got to nighttime. I was like, well, I can't sleep before this gig because I'm not going to wake up in time. Like I just have to stay awake. So I went and grabbed a coffee, went and played warm up for Nuzal. But the funny thing is, this night was the night that we switched the clocks in the fall, so you gain an hour. Right. So I was supposed to play a 3 hour, which is already a great length warm up, and I ended up playing 4. And then Nuzal played another 3 hours, so this was already just like a long full night. And then he invited me back on the decks at like 6 in the morning, and we played till like 9:30 in the morning underneath the 6th Street Bridge, open air venue, super sick. And it was fun. We were just like, once he invited me back on the decks, we were just like full throttle smashing it out like for a long time. So that was a memorable one for sure.
Oh man. Okay. Do you have any, like, I don't know, anything that like you just always remember, like a crazy story from one of your gigs, or just something wild that's happened to you that you just really didn't expect?
I remember just a random one. The first time I ever played, it's like one of my first gigs, actually. I still think this is so funny and random, but one of my first gigs at Brussels in Laguna when I was maybe like 21, it was like the first time I ever played there. There was this dude, this like older guy, maybe 50s guy, and he was so like inebriated, and I'm playing and the music's bumping, and this guy's clearly like had a lot to drink, and he's like every few minutes or whatever, every 10 or 15 minutes, he would just take wads of cash, like 5s, 10s, and 20s, and throw them at the decks. Like, and I'm like, I was like, I appreciate it, but he was throwing it onto the decks, and like, I'm trying to mix and play my music, and I'm not that comfortable in a club. Like, I was 21, I didn't know what the hell was going on. And he's throwing cash like onto the decks, and my buddy Cole is like grabbing it off of the thing. And long story short, that guy threw more cash at me than the promoter paid me for the gig. I made more money from that guy, and I was like trying to be like thank you, but I was focused on playing, and the guy disappeared after that. Like, he just left, and he wasn't even trying to talk to me or anything. He was throwing money at me, which was the strangest thing ever. Again, keep in mind, that's one of my first gigs. I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Just thrown for a loop on that one.
Yeah. So that was as far as like out of left field type stuff, that was a weird one. But otherwise, I mean, just the nights that have like come into the morning when everyone's still there, and it's like you see all your friends still listening to the music, and everyone's chatting, and everyone has that kind of new sense of energy once the sun comes up, and then we go to someone's house and play records all day. Like, those are kind of the most memorable, especially when there's an artist in town and it's like we show them a really fun time. for their travel in LA. Like sometimes they come in, go straight to the gig, we play, and then we're playing records into the morning, and then they have to grab their bag, go straight to the airport and leave. Like, I think it's funny to see them again. We're like, oh man, that was a hell of a time last time, right? You know, like, so I think that those are the most special moments, is like connecting with people from out of town, and like just again spending time together, like at events is all I need, really.
Cool. All right, I got a couple more questions for you. Are there any underrated DJs or crews or producers right now that you're just like, man, this is coming up. They're coming up really fast, and anything that you should put us on, the people on, you know, anyone out here in LA or elsewhere, you know, that you just think is doing it really proper right now?
I mean, yeah, there are a ton in LA. I would say they're all like becoming well known and well established, like in the LA underground. But like I mentioned, I mean, obviously I'm going to shout out the party that I have residency at. I think Enzo and the crew behind the scenes really does a great job. You know what, LA. Of course, Dialogue is always throwing great parties. Borderless Project. There are a lot of other like even smaller event series coming out that are really doing a great job. Like it's kind of just about like you or anyone to like discover, meet people, and find them, because they are out there. Yeah. As far as crews, I mean, there are so many internationally, but it's, yeah, I think as far as specifics, I would say that like it's more so that I'll meet people, whether it be online or through other DJs, like internationally, that have really sick music, and it's kind of just about like them growing and making moves in their career, and watching that happen is kind of the most special part, honestly. Sure. As far as specifics, no, I would say that you will discover as you continue to dig and meet people, you will discover them for sure, all over, locally and abroad. There are many out there.
Awesome. Okay, I got two more for you. What's one piece of advice that you wish someone had given you when you started out that you can give to someone that's maybe listening to this podcast?
I mean, something that my mentors say often is like, be sure to be adding value, you know, have your skills, but always be looking out for what you can do more that really like differentiates you. I don't know if anyone had ever given me this, what I'm about to say, this next piece of advice, but I think it's something that like I've just kind of learned, like learned by watching, honestly, other people, is just that taking the long game approach and doing it for like doing all this work because you really love the music and you want to contribute and give something, you will see a return in ways that you wouldn't from just doing it for other reasons. I don't know. I think that if you're mainly focused on that and focused on the working hard, like putting your head down and just contributing, that is ultimately what is going to yield results. And it's not, I mean, that's kind of the beauty of this, is that it's not something that you can really achieve in a 2 or even like a 5-year period. This is about years and years of grafting. Like that's why my heroes are who they are in their 50s, is because they've literally traveled around the world with a record bag and made their own music for like 30 years. And it's, I heard Seth Troxler say this in a recent interview, and just said, it really is just the last man standing in this game. Like that is ultimately what it is. And it's funny because obviously there are other factors, but like that seems to be the way that it is. You really just have to be consistent and never stop.
Right. And I remember you mentioning that on the phone when I was talking to you just about this podcast, about everything. It was just like, hey, like it's gonna be a long game, and you know, you just gotta wait it out, and then you just keep staying true to what you believe in and your ethos a little bit, and just, you know, stick to it. And eventually, you're either gonna stop or something's gonna happen, you know. And it really just is the long game. But all right, I got a last question for you.
Sure.
Yeah, just tell the people where they can find you, what you have coming up soon, new releases, new parties that you're going to be playing, just anything, anywhere that they can come and find you.
Yep. Yeah. So my Instagram is just Max Coletto. Everything is just by my name. So you'll find me on Instagram, Max Coletto, on SoundCloud, Max Coletto. You'll find my Bandcamp, where I'm slowly starting to share some of my like dance music, but also some of the ambient music that I make. So you can find it there. Otherwise, yeah, gigs, you can follow You Know What LA, Chapter 1 Records as well. We're going to be busy with doing like pop-up events with Chapter 1, as well as just my residency with You Know What, playing consistently. Otherwise, I'll be posting about my other gigs. But I would say staying in touch there and using that as a way to connect with and learn about other things happening in LA, other collectives, other parties. I would suggest that. But yeah, otherwise, that's pretty much, where you can find me.
Okay, well, Max, I just want to say thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to sit down with me and have a conversation. And big thank you for being our first guest on the podcast. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you soon. You know, I'll always be around. I know you will, and we'll definitely connect up here soon and see what we get into.
Anytime, bro. Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me. It's fun to chat with you formally like this. And appreciate the invite again. Thanks.
Of course. All right, brother. You
All
have a
right.
good rest of your day.
See you, brother. You too.